Welcome everyone. So today I am going to read about the internal combustion engine or IC engine. So before going to IC engine, you must know what is the engine. So engine is a device which transforms one form of energy into another form of energy. Or basically we can say that the engine is a thing which actually changes the thermal energy into mechanical energy. So these engines which actually convert the thermal energy into mechanical energy are known as the heat engines. So basically the heat engines are divided into two types. One is the internal combustion engine and the second one is the external combustion engine. The internal combustion engine is commonly known as IC engine, while the external combustion engine is known as the EC engine. Okay. So what is external combustion engine? So you can say the combustion engine or the combustion of the fuel that takes place outside the engine cylinder is known as your external combustion engine. So in external combustion engine you can say the fuel combustion takes place outside the engine cylinder. Later on I will tell you what is the engine cylinder, but before you can say that in external combustion engine the combustion takes place outside the engine cylinder. Let me show you how this takes place. The best example is you can see over here, the best example is the steam engine. Okay, so you must have seen in movies also that some person is continuously providing some kind of coal into a chamber. So that is a combustion chamber. Okay, so in that combustion chamber you can see, so the one water chamber is there. So from the water the steam is generated, and these steams help to propel the engine, which actually moves the particular engine in the forward direction. So this is the external combustion engine. That means your engine is over here, all the work done is over here outside. Okay, and your combustion takes place at some other place. So this is known as the external combustion engine. The next one is the internal combustion engine. What is this? So you can say the combustion of fuel takes place inside the engine cylinder. All those automobiles which we are seeing in day-to-day life are the examples of the internal combustion engines. For example, your tractors, your automobiles, car, trucks, anything we are seeing over here is the internal combustion engine. So few maybe in the industry you are seeing the external combustion engine, okay, or in some places maybe Simla, or you can say in some of the hill stations you can see you are finding some of the steam engines. But IC engines or the internal combustion engines you are going to find out everywhere. That's why our chapter will be concentrated on these IC engines or internal combustion engines. So basically I have told you, heat engine, it is the part which converts the heat energy into mechanical energy, and it is divided into two parts: internal combustion engine known as IC engine or external combustion engine, EC engines. So again, what is a external combustion engine? Already I have told you that you can see over here one combustion chamber will be there, in which the coal or the combustion material will be provided, which will combust or it will burn, and then one container will be there in which the water will be there. Okay, so this combustion heat or this, you can see the heat produced from this chamber will heat the water and the steam will be generated. Now these steams will actually reciprocate the piston and the cylinder. As a result, you can see the wheels will rotate in the forward direction. So this is your external combustion engine or EC engine. Then comes to the IC engine. So this is the IC engine. So you can say the combustion of the fuel takes place inside the engine cylinder. Okay. So you can see over here, this is the cylinder, right? And the combustion here takes place inside this. So different cylinders are there, and you can say that the combustion takes place inside the cylinder. That's why the name is known as internal. Internal means internally the combustion is taking place. Now, when I'm talking about the IC engines and the EC engines, okay, so several types of internal combustion engines are there also. So external combustion, one example I have told you, steam engine was the example. Okay. IC engines are of different types. I mean different designs of engines are there. The one is the reciprocating engine, Wankel engine, rotary gas turbines. So different engines are there which are used for different purposes. Okay. But basically we would concentrate on the reciprocating engine because in the tractor, you can say, or in the other automobiles, the reciprocating engines is being used for all purposes, right? So this reciprocating engine is again subdivided into two types. What are those? One is the CI engine, one is the SI engine. CI means compression ignition engine. Compression ignition engine, and SI is the spark ignition engine. Okay, so compression ignition and spark ignition engine. So compression ignition means the ignition, or you can say the combustion inside the chamber or the cylinder takes place due to compression of the air. So that's why it is known as the compression ignition. And SI engine means the ignition takes place due to the spark. A spark is there which actually happens inside the engine cylinder. That's why it is known as the spark ignition. Later on I will tell you the basic difference between all these things. Again, the compression ignition are divided into two more types. The CI engine or the compression ignition engine are divided into two types. One is the two-stroke engine, one is the four-stroke engine. Similarly, the SI engines are divided into two types, two-stroke and four-stroke. Okay, I'll tell you later on what is two-stroke and what is four-stroke. But for now, all can remember that the CI engine is divided into two parts, that is two-stroke and four-stroke, and the SI engine divided into two parts, one is two-stroke and four-stroke. Now, what is the spark ignition engine? As I have told you, SI engine, the engine in which the combustion process in each cycle is started by an external spark. Okay, so you all must have seen when you are just burning a kind of lighter or the matchstick, you are giving some kind of external spark. Okay, so similar kind of arrangement is given inside the engine cylinder. Okay, or you can say that the spark, due to the spark or external, you can say one combustion or external heat, the combustion takes place. Okay. What is CI engine? The engine in which the combustion process starts when the particular air or air fuel mixture is ignites themselves due to high temperature in the combustion chamber. You can see over here. So this is the combustion chamber. Okay. So this over here, what happens? Due to high compression, that means the air is compressed. The air is compressed like this. So as a result, what happens? The temperature and the pressure increases. So this actually self-ignites the particular fuel mixture or air. Okay, as a result, the combustion occurs. That's why this is known as the compression. The fuel is compressed and ignites. That's why it is known as compression ignition. And here you can say spark, an external spark is given due to which the combustion occurs. Okay. Spark ignition, I can give you the best example is the bike. All the bike you are seeing over here in the day-to-day life. So, or you can say the petrol engines are basically the SI engines. So the petrol engines are known as the SI engines, while the diesel engine, all diesel engines, your tractor, your car which are run by the diesel, then your trucks, etc. So which are due to the, these engines which actually ignite due to the compression is known as the CI engine. Okay. Now, before going to any IC engine or going to the what is two-stroke, what is four-stroke, okay, and what is CI engine in detail, so you must know the components of the IC engines. So what are the different components of the IC engines? After knowing the components, we will easily know in the next video that how a four-stroke and a two-stroke process takes place. Coming quickly to the components. So basically you can see in this slide that the components of the IC engine is broadly classified into three things. What are those? The first one is the cylinder head. Right, you can see over here. Okay, this is one of the exploded view of the engine, you can see. So you can see this part is the cylinder head. The middle part is known as the engine block. The second part is known as the engine block. And the bottom part is known as the crankcase. So inside these three things, several parts will come. Okay, so that's why I have told you that all the IC engines are basically divided into three types. What are those? One is the cylinder head. The top portion is known as the cylinder head. The middle portion is known as the engine block, and the bottom portion is known as the crankcase. Okay. So what are these? Okay, one more thing is there. You can see a certain gaskets is over here, right? So what is the function of this gasket? So gasket is similar to thing I think you all have seen. A similar kind of rubber is there in your pressure cooker also. Okay. So why that is given? So that no air leak can happen during the process. Okay. So that's why. In the similar way, you can say that the cylinder head and between the cylinder engine block, one gasket is given so that no air leakage will be there, right? And finally, similarly, you can say engine block and crankcase also another gasket is given or another rubber lining is given so that no air leakage will be occur. Okay, so gasket is given between individual two parts to keep it fully airtight, right? If air will pass through, obviously there will be power loss. So to reduce the power loss, the gaskets are given. Now, these are some of the exploded view. This will come to later on. Now, what is this cylinder head? So you can see this. I have already told you the top portion of the engine is known as the cylinder head. Okay. So you can see over here, the upper end of the cylinder are closed by the cylinder head. So if this is the cylinder, total cylinder, you can see over here, if this is the total cylinder, then the top portion, this top portion is known as the cylinder head. Okay. So cylinder head is fitted to the top of the cylinder, right? And what does it consist of? It consists of all the valves, right? The camshaft, etc. All these are fitted to your cylinder head. So it is mainly made up of steel or aluminum alloy. Okay. And what is the gasket material that is used? So copper or asbestos gasket is provided so that it can be made airtight. Next comes to the cylinder block. So cylinder block is, you can say, the main framework of the engine where all the processes takes place. Okay, all the combustion process and all, it takes place inside the cylinder block. So cylinder block is the basic framework of the engine. Okay, it supports also and holds all the engine components. So it supports and holds all the engine components. For example, I can say the cylinder, the piston, okay, the connecting rod, all these things are kept in the cylinder block, okay, due to which actually the combustion takes place, right? So what is a cylinder? You can see over here. So you can see cylinder is nothing but a hollow component, right? So cylinder is nothing but a hollow component. You can see several cylinders are over here, 1, 2, 3 and 4 cylinders are over here. Okay, so cylinder is nothing but a large hold machine in the cylinder block. Okay. So hollow component is there, it's made in the cylinder block, and inside the cylinder the pistons actually reciprocate. And the cylinder block is the part which actually withstand high pressure and temperature. Right? And what is the material it is made up of? So it is made up of cast iron or aluminum alloy. Next, what is a cylinder? Now cylinder, as I have told you, is a hollow component made in the cylinder block. You can see cylinder block, one hollow component is there, right? And is the basic and the supporting portion of the engine power unit. As I have told you, all the power that actually generated inside the engine cylinder happens, all the processes takes place inside the engine cylinder, right? Or you can say it is the space which actually the piston reciprocates up and down and the power is generated, or you can say the heat energy is converted into mechanical energy within this cylinder only, right? So the high temperature is generated, that's why the material is mainly made up of high grade cast iron, or nickel and molybdenum are added to the cast iron so that more strength and wear resistance can be given. So you can say the cylinder can be of several types. One is single cylinder, one is multi-cylinder. As the name suggests, single means only one cylinder will be there. If more than one cylinder will be there, it is known as what, your multi-cylinder. So you can see over here, these are all your single cylinder engines. Okay. So the best example, I guess, you all have seen the agricultural field. The motor is, the pump is used. Okay, the agricultural motor is used for pumping the water, right? So these are all single cylinder engines, right? So again the sprayer is there, in which the engine is used. So there is again a single cylinder engines. So you can see over here, if a single cylinder and a single piston is there, so these kind of engines are known as your single cylinder. If more than one cylinder are there, that is known as the multi-cylinder. That means the cylinder can be 2-cylinder engine, 3-cylinder engine, 4-cylinder engine, 6 or 8. You can see in the photograph that how many cylinders are over here. 1, 2, 3 and 4 cylinders. So 4 cylinders are there in the engine. Now cylinder liner. Now you can say that liner is something which is pressed into the engine block casting. Okay, so this is the engine block. The cylinder will be inserted over here. Okay, so around this one lining is given, right? One lining is given. Now obviously you can say the cylinder actually reciprocates at a very high speed, not at a speed you are, not as such at a slow speed you are seeing over here. So it reciprocates at a very high speed, right? So if it reciprocates at a very high speed, obviously the friction will be there. So to reduce the friction and the heat that is generated, one lining is given. So these are known as the cylinder liner. Again, this cylinder can be of dry liner, wet liner. Okay, dry liner means what? No water is involved in it. Only one, you can say external coating kind of thing is given. So that is your cylinder liner. You can say the dry liner. And wet liner, if you say, you can see over here the dry liner, and if I tell you about the wet liner, one water is actually, jacket is actually given over here. So you can see over here this is the cylinder block. Okay, so you can see some jacket kind of thing is given, or external hollow cavity is given, that is known as the jackets. Inside the jackets the water is provided, so that whatever the heat is generated, that can be taken by the water. So these are known as the wet liners. Again, the dry liners and the wet liners work the same principle, that these will take the heat and reduce the friction. Okay. Now the wet liners are used in the bigger engines and the dry liners are used in the smaller engines. Okay. Now the basic part. Now before coming to this, let me tell you how this you can say the engine is transferring the heat energy into the mechanical engine. So basically, if you see the main part, let me come over here. Yes, you can see how this is rotating. So basically, you can see the engine has certain basic parts. Already I have told you one part, that is the cylinder. The engine has a cylinder. Okay. The engine has a piston which actually reciprocates. You can see over here it's how it is reciprocating. So we have a piston. Correct. And the third one which actually is linked with the piston. You can see over here it's linked. So this is known as the connecting rod, which actually help in reciprocating the pistons. So this is the connecting rod. And finally you can see over here certain things which are actually linked with the connecting rod. So this is known as the crankshaft. Okay. So piston, connecting rod, crankshaft. Okay. So these are the crank and the shaft is mounted. That is known as the crankshaft. Okay. And this crankshaft is again added to your flywheel, or again jointed with flywheel. So from the flywheel actually the power goes to the rear portion of the wheel. Okay. So as the flywheel rotates, you can say the engine is transferring the power, and this power is taken to the rear side of the wheel, due to which the particular vehicle moves in the forward directions. Okay. Now coming to the piston. As I have told you, the cylinder is there. The piston is that part which actually reciprocates inside the cylinder. Okay. So the cylinder is that, the piston is that part which takes the power from the inside the cylinder and converts the heat energy that is developed inside the combustion chamber and convert into mechanical power. That means what? If the piston reciprocates, obviously your connecting rod will reciprocate. Your connecting rod reciprocates your crankshaft, and your crankshaft rotates your flywheel, as I have told you in the previous slide. Okay. So you can say that it helps to convert the pressure energy obtained by the combustion into mechanical power. Okay. And this power is transferred to the crankshaft through the connecting rod. So all these your aluminum alloy is being used as a piston. You can see how this is how the piston look like. Okay. Now coming to the parts of the piston. So several parts are there. So you can see that this is how the piston look like. So you can see this is the connecting rod. Okay. And obviously the outside the cylinder will be there. So inside the cylinder the piston reciprocates. That's why the engine name is also known as the reciprocating engine, I told you earlier. Okay. So the top portion is known, the top portion of the piston will tell you the construction features. The top portion of the piston is known as the piston crown. You can see over here the top portion is known as the piston crown. Okay. Now if we come to the downward position, you can see several slots are over here. So this thing, see these slots. So the slots are given, right? So these slots are given. So generally 2 to 3 slots are given. So for this top slot is known as the compression ring, okay, or compression slot. Or you can say one in this slot some ring is being inserted, and the first ring is known as the compression ring. So generally 1 or 2 compression rings are there in the cylinder, and the next one is the oil ring. Okay, the next one is the oil ring, and the first one is the your compression ring, right? And in the middle one hole is there. You can see. So if this is the connecting rod, how it will be connected to the piston? You can see one pin is there, right? So this pin is actually inserted inside this hole. Okay, you can see. So this is known as the piston pin, or piston pin is actually the thing which actually connects the connecting rod to the piston. Okay, or it's also known as a gudgeon pin. So gudgeon pin and the piston. Okay, so this connects the piston and the connecting rod. The last part is known as the piston skirt. What is this piston skirt? Piston skirt is the part which helps to take the side thrust from the cylinder. Okay, so it's the part which actually takes the side thrust from the cylinder and helps the cylinder to be its original position. Now see what happens when the you can say lot of heat is being generated inside the engine cylinder, right? Now the piston shape is made in such a way that, okay, the skirt is made in such a way that it can take side thrust and it can make a round position. Okay, it can make the round position of the piston so that the shape will not be distorted. So that's why the skirt is given, so that the side thrust from the cylinder onto the piston can be taken, right? So this is the piston spin. So skirt I have told you what is the function of the skirt. Okay. The next comes the rings. I have told you piston rings are of two types. One is a compression ring, one is the oil ring. Generally, one or two compression rings are there, but one oil ring will be there. Okay, depending on manufacturer to manufacturer, that will vary. Right? The first one is the compression rings. I will tell you the top one. That means after crown, the slot in which the ring is inserted, that is known as the compression. How do you recognize a compression ring? If you see over, you can see in the drawing that the compression ring is a plain ring, plain kind of ring. Okay, so no slots are given, but you can see in the oil ring, this is the oil ring, some slots are given in between. Okay, so from here you can recognize that this is the compression ring and this is the oil ring. Clear? So these are the plain one piece ring and always placed in groups nearest to the piston head or piston crown. Okay, as I have told you, the rings are placed just below the piston head or piston crown. Next, the oil ring. Oil ring are what? These are grouped and slotted, and these are located where either in the lowest position, above, just above the piston pin, okay, or nearer to the piston slot. If the, you can say the oil ring is more, you can, or in the compression ring is more, the position goes little bit down, but mainly you can say the lower position or of the ring is known as the oil rings. Okay, so oil rings, you can say some slots are given over here. Okay, some slots. Why these slots are given? So that the oil can come outside and it can lubricate your piston and the cylinder. Okay, what is the function of the compression ring? So as the name suggests, compression ring means what? It will never allow the gases generated to pass through. Okay, sometimes what happens if the piston, the cylinder, suppose this is a piston, if this is not leak proof, the combustion gases may go to the crankcase and it will create a problem. Okay, so to make it leak proof actually, okay, so the contact area between the cylinder and the piston, what to make it leak proof, the compression rings were given. Okay, then what is the oil ring? Oil ring, as I have told you, it helps to lubricate the cylinder, valve and the piston. Okay, so you can see over here the slots are given, so through the slots the oil actually oozes out and it helps to lubricate the cylinder and the piston. Right? So these are the functions already I have told you. So generally what the power is developed, the piston takes the power and it converts into mechanical. How does it, who takes the power? You can see the top portion is known as the crown. From the crown the combustion takes place. Okay, the combustion over here takes place and the combustion actually propels the piston in the downward position. So the crown of the piston takes the combustion power and propels the piston to move in the downward position. Then the connecting rod. So already I have told you, connecting rod is that part, okay, which actually connects the piston and the crankshaft. Okay, so you can say the two, if this is the connecting rod, it has two ends, one small end and one big end. So on the small end, what is connected? The piston is connected, and on the big end, what is connected? The crankshaft is connected. Okay, so this helps to connect it with the piston and the crankshaft, or you can say it is kind of link. Okay, or the material, what is the material used? The material used is the drop force steels and the section is the I-beam type. You can see it over here, the section is the I-beam type. Okay, I-beam type section is used, and what is the material used is the drop forge material steel. What is the function? The function is that it converts the reciprocating motion of the piston into rotary motion of the crankshaft. Okay, so the reciprocating motion of the piston is converted into rotary motion of the crankshaft. You can see in the video that here the reciprocating motion of the piston is converted into the rotary motion of the crankshaft. Here also you can see that how it is rotated, right? So here suppose the combustion takes place, it will propel the piston in downward position, the connecting rod will move, which will actually rotate the crankshaft. Then what is crankshaft? So you can say that the crankshaft is that part which converts the reciprocating motion of the piston into rotary motion of the flywheel. Okay. So as I have shown you in the earlier figure that here the crankshaft is connected to the flywheel. So as the crankshaft rotates, the flywheel also rotates. That means the crankshaft helps to rotate the flywheel. Okay. So the crankshaft is the first part of the power transmission in which the reciprocating motion of the piston converted into rotary motion with the help of the connecting rod. That means what you can see over here, the piston is there, connecting rod. It will help to move the crankshaft, which actually converts the reciprocating motion of the piston into the rotary motion. So as this crankshaft is connected to the flywheel also rotates. Okay. So the rear end of the crankshaft is flanged and bolted with the flywheel. So I have told you, the crankshaft rotates, the flywheel also rotates. Okay. Then injectors and the spark plug. Already I have told you two types of engines are there. One is the SI engine, one is the CI engine. Okay. SI means one external spark is actually inserted so that the combustion can take place. So this spark is done by a plug known as spark plug. Like I have told you, if you just light a matchstick, okay, so it's kind of matchstick, you cannot light a matchstick inside the engine cylinder. That's why the spark plug is given. Okay, the spark plug is designed in such a way that what it will do, it will spark inside the engine cylinder and the combustion will take place. Okay. So these are found generally in the SI engines or petrol engines. Right. What is CI engines? CI means the compression ignition engine in which the air is compressed and the combustion takes place. But you may think that if the air is compressed, how the combustion will take place? Obviously, what happens over here? Suppose this is a cylinder. The piston, I'll tell you in the further video that how this happens. So when the piston will move up, okay. So when the air will be compressed, so at the end, what will happen? The fuel is actually sprayed. Spray the fuel into fine particle or atomized particle into the combustion chamber. So the compressed air will be hot. When it comes in contact with fuel, what will happen? The combustion will occur. Okay. So this is how the CI engine, the combustion takes place. Now how the fuel is sprayed? The fuel is sprayed by the injectors. You can see over here, injectors are there. So these injectors will spray the fuel inside the engine cylinders. Okay. So these CI engines are generally found in the diesel engines. Okay. So the diesel engine will help to in the diesel engine the fuel injector will spray the fuel inside the cylinder. Okay. So you can see over here in the animation kind that how the spark takes place, and you see how the fuel injection takes place. You can see, so the fuel is injected and the combustion, the hot red part is known as the combustion. Okay. Right. Now, I have told you the basic parts. What are the basic parts? One is the cylinder. Second one is the piston. And the third one is the connecting rod. Fourth one is converted rotary motion. The reciprocating motion is converted into rotary motion, known as crankshaft. And the fifth one is the flywheel. Right? So these are the parts I have told you. Now the question is how the combustion will take place, how the air will come inside, how the gases that will go outside. That is one of the major questions. Okay. So certain kind of valves are actually given. Right? So you can see over here, valves are given. Okay. So generally, two types of valves are there in the engine. One is the intake valve, one is the exhaust valve. Intake valve I think you must not have, one must be familiar. But exhaust valve, I think all have seen in day-to-day life. I think all have heard about the word silencer, in which the waste gases actually comes out. Okay. So how these waste gases comes out? So these waste gases comes out of the exhaust valve. Okay. So this exhaust, through this exhaust valve, the burnt gases actually comes outside. And how the fresh air is taken inside? With the help of the intake valve. Okay. So two valves are there. One is the intake valve, one is the exhaust valve. Okay. How these valves are operated? These valves are operated by a shaft known as the camshaft. Okay, these are operated by a shaft known as the camshaft. What is a camshaft? So you can see over here, I have told you on one side what is there, your flywheel is attached. Okay, on one end of the crankshaft, suppose this is the end in which the flywheel is there. What about the other end? Another end is there. Suppose this is the flywheel. Okay, you can see the video. This is the flywheel. What about the other end? The other end is connected with some belt and gear pulley arrangement. Okay, with belt and gear pulley arrangement, and you can see over here certain kind of serrations are here given. Okay, you can see this video also. Next video, yes, you can see. Yes, this one. Okay, so these are known as the cam. Okay, these are known as the cam. So these cams, when mounted of the shaft, this is known as the camshaft. So how these are operated? So this takes the power from the crankshaft with the help of belt and pulley, and this operate and mainly helpful for opening and closing of the valve. Okay, so these are arranged in such a way that what happens, the valves open or close due to this camshaft. Okay, later on I'll tell you, when I tell you the valve function, how this is done in detail, I'll tell you. But for now, we can just say that the camshaft is the part which helps in the opening and closing of the valves. So the inlet valve, when the inlet valve will open, when it will close, when the exhaust valve will be open, when it will be closed, all these things are decided by the camshaft. Okay, and the gear arrangement. So this is about the camshaft, and this is the gear I am talking about, right? So this small gear is connected to the crankshaft, and the bigger gear is connected to the camshaft, right? And what is the gear ratio, or can say the gear ratio? The gear ratio is 1:1. Okay, that means what? The number of teeth, if this is 1, the size will be twice of this camshaft. So camshaft gear will be twice. Why this is there? I'll tell you in the later slides why the size differs and all. I'll tell you in the other videos, okay, about the timing gear. But timing gear, you can understand that this is connected or help to connect the crankshaft and the camshaft, and helps in opening and closing of the valves, intake valve and exhaust. Clear? And this is how the valve actually look like. What I was telling you about, the valve are inlet valve or intake valve, whatever you can call it, and the second one is the exhaust valve. So this is how the valve will actually look like. So valve means what? Which actually restricts the flow. There is a valve that you can find in every kind of day-to-day life also. In the tap, if you are opening a tap, when you are opening the valve, tap, that means what? You are opening the valve. You are closing the tap, that means you are closing the valve. Okay. So similarly, in the engine, these two valves are given. One intake valve will help to restrict the air inside, or it will allow the air to go inside. While the exhaust valve, it will restrict the burnt air, or it will allow the burnt air to go outside. So opening and closing is done by the valves, okay, and these are governed by whom? The camshaft, by help of the timing gears. So these gears are known as the timing gears. So timing gears and camshafts help to open the valves. Okay, how I was talking about the intake valve and the exhaust valve. With the cylinder, with the piston, okay, and you can say the connecting rod and the crankshaft is there. Right? And two more things are there. So you have read about the cylinder head, okay, the valve, the camshaft, okay, the timing gears are all there in the cylinder head. Engine block, what you can see the cylinder liners, the pistons, the connecting rod, all these things are there in your engine block, or the major portion is there in your engine block. What is there in the crankcase? As the name suggests, crank means what? It is a case or covering which actually covers the crankshaft. Okay, so that's why it is known as the crankcase. That means you can see over here. So here the crankshaft is deep inside the crankcase. Okay, so you can see already the castings is been given. That means the crankshaft is deep inside this crankcase. Okay, so inside the crankcase your oil is actually dipped. Okay, I'll tell you in the later in the lubrication system how these things happen. But you can say that suppose this is the crankcase, this is the crankshaft. The crankshaft will rotate inside this crankcase. Okay, why? Because the crankcase generally consists of oil. I think you all have heard about the engine oil, right? So this engine oil is actually stored in the crankcase, okay, and help in the lubrication of the system. So the engine oil or the lubricating oil is stored in the crankcase, and the crankshaft is deep inside this crankcase or the engine, right? Or you can say the crankcase is the lower portion of the total engine. So three parts basically: cylinder head, engine block, and crankcase. Finally, flywheel. Now, flywheel is the part, or you can say the big solid wheel actually mounted at the crankshaft, and it's actually what does it do? It helps to take the power from the crankshaft. The rotary power is transmitted to the flywheel, and from the flywheel the power is transmitted to the rear portion of the wheel. That means what? Flywheel, suppose this is the flywheel. From the flywheel it will go to the gearbox. Gearbox, it will go directly to the wheel, which will help to move the engine in the forward directions. Okay. So you can say it's a part again which help to maintain the constant speed. So due to the flywheel, due to the weight of the flywheel, the constant speed is maintained. Okay. Or you can say if the flywheel is bigger in size, the engine size will be bigger. If the flywheel size is smaller, the engine size will be smaller. Another function is that it also stores excess energy during the power stroke and gives out during the other strokes. So that I will tell you later how this is done. But you can say that the excess energy is stored during the power stroke, okay, and that's releases during the other stroke. Or you can say that flywheel helps to store the energy, maintain the constant speed, okay, and the size of the engine depends on the flywheel. Okay. And then comes the manifold. The last thing is known as the manifold. So manifold are of two types. What are those? One is intake manifold, one is exhaust manifold. Okay. What is intake manifold? Intake manifold are nothing but the pipes kind of thing. Okay. So the passage through which the air actually comes inside is known as the manifold. The air actually comes inside or goes outside. If it comes inside, is known as the intake manifold, or the passages through which the air actually comes inside. The passages through which the air actually goes out to the atmosphere is known as the exhaust manifold. Okay. All I think you heard about the air cleaner. So air cleaner is a part of the intake manifold. So air cleaner is connected to the intake manifold. So through the clean air passes through the air cleaner and then goes to the intake manifold to the combustion chamber or the cylinder. Cylinder is also known as combustion chamber, right? So So air thinner, intake manifold and combustion chamber. Okay, so here and then you can say intake manifold is there, then comes the exhaust. Okay, so exhaust manifold, I think the silencer, I think you all have heard. So through the exhaust manifold, the air goes out to the silencer and to the outside through exhaust valve. Okay, so exhaust valve helps to take the air outside through the exhaust manifold into the silencer. So manifold means the passages through the air fuel comes inside, air fuel mixture or the air comes inside, or you can say the passage through which the air goes, the burnt gases go outside is known as the exhaust manifold. This is how the engine, ICE engines total look like, and these are different parts. Let me just revise the things in a briefly. So coming to this cylinder, piston, connecting rod, crankshaft, flywheel, okay, then intake valve, exhaust valve. Okay, this is the intake. Exhaust, you can see the air is coming out inside. You can see the air actually burnt gases is going outside the exhaust. So this is the cam or the camshaft. Okay, this is the camshaft, and it is connected through here. It is not shown, but it is connected through your belt and pulley and timing gears. Okay, so gears are there. So timing gear and belt pulley. Okay, so belt and timing gears are there, which helps to rotate the camshaft. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. So if you like the video, please subscribe it and